Thank you all so much for coming. I'm really excited for our discussion tonight. My name is Aria Brescia, and tonight we'll be having a discussion on perspectives on organic certification in partnership with UW Extension, Fair Share CSA Coalition, and the Midwest Top Program. We are going to go ahead into the panel session of our webinar, and I'm going to be giving some brief introductions of our panelists. We have Kat Becker, Brad Wissmueller, and Martice Scales. So first, Kat Becker is with Cattail Organics. They're a family farm located in Athens, Wisconsin, and they produce a diverse array of organic vegetables, seedlings, maple syrup, and herbs. They have 5 acres of vegetable production, and they offer a 3-season CSA, have wholesale accounts with restaurants, grocery stores, and schools, as well as sell at a farmer's market and have an online store. They're dedicated to providing access to fresh and high-quality produce for their community. And they are certified organic. Brad Wissmueller is with Little Society Farm. They are a recently transitioned farm that produces meat and eggs and organic diversified produce on 20 acres in Baraboo, Wisconsin. They offer both summer and extended season CSA programs, operating with a strong commitment to land stewardship and aiming to support local ecosystems through their farming practices. And finally, we have Martice Scales with Full Circle Healing Farm. They are a family-run farm, healing center, and apothecary in Mequon, Wisconsin. They're dedicated to nourishing their community by providing access to fresh food and holistic healing, while championing food justice, racial justice, and land stewardship. They grow a variety of vegetables, herbs, and flowers on 2 acres at the Mequon Nature Preserve as a part of the Fondy Farm Incubator Program. Full Circle offers a 16-week CSA from July to October, and they also sell at local farmers markets. Thank you all so much for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and start with our first panel question, which is what factors influenced your decision to either pursue or not pursue organic certification? And just for clarity here, maybe we will start with Brad.
Hey, yeah. So I think the main thing for us was Fair Share, and we really liked the Fair Share organization and wanted to be further involved in that. And to be an indoors farm, you need that certification. So that's sort of the main reason. But the sort of secondary reason would just be it's a lot clearer to customers. Like we get questions a lot, oh, are you organic at the farmer's market? And it's just much nicer now to be able to say yes rather than have a whole story, which the story is nice to talk about too and how we grow, but it's nice to be able to just say yes. And that also goes with our sort of neighbors and the rest of the community. So it has that potential protection that they're going to sort of treat our farm with a little bit more care if there's spraying around it. We are surrounded by like neighborhoods and a conventional farm. So, but yeah, main thing, Fair Share and getting on the sort of like radar of that CSA search tool. Like we've had a lot of people, new people this year, and they just refer to it as the CSA search tool. And so it is a pretty powerful marketing tool in that way.
Wonderful, thank you. And either Kat or Martice can jump in.
Sure, I'll jump in. I have only ever been an organic farmer. So people often ask about the transition, and I worked on certified organic farms. And then when I started my farm career, we were transitioning a farm that had been rented out, but kind of actively doing that. And that was my first, so I'm on my second farm. On my first farm, that was in 2006 when I started farming. 2005 we planted cover crops, and it was just a different moment, I feel like, in the organic and CSA community. And so at that point, being certified organic, I feel like was like a kind of like a badge of honor. And we're in northwestern Marathon County, so we're not in an area with a lot of certified organic production and almost no certified organic vegetable production. And that area has been growing over the last 10 years a little bit here. And for us, it was partially being part of Fair Share. We like aspired to do that, so that was part of it. And then I think part of it was just being part of this larger community. And I saw, and I continue to see, while I understand there's lots of critiques of organic, which I'm happy to talk about, I saw it as being kind of truthful and advertising, and then also kind of paying my dues into a system I was benefiting from. And I think as you gain, especially as my income from farming went up, it became more and more important to me to feel like I was contributing to a standard that I was benefiting from. Because obviously, all of us probably on this call know you can say and use your story, like talk about what practices you're using. But certainly, when you conjure the word organic, you are conjuring people's understanding that often is tied to that USDA standard. So for us, that was an important ideological thing.
All right, so I guess that's me. At first, I wanted to send all the energy out to anybody that's connected to any of the recent weather tragedies that have happened or are currently happening, and everybody dealing with food insecurity and all those things. So we are currently not pursuing organic certification. And the reasons are multiple fold. One, we are on an incubated farm and we can't control what people are doing 12 feet away from us. That's how wide um, the driveways are in between our farm and the next. We know there's a real thing about drift, and if people are spraying things, I doubt that they're being as careful as the farmers like Brad was talking about. They're also small scale, and they don't have the machinery to be more careful with that. And also, um, we cater to the population that really suffer from food apartheid, and uh, they are in poverty. So the organic certification kind of asks you to charge more and pay yourself more fairly. Um, but that also means that those people in poverty can't afford it. So for us, it was more moral. We would like the certification to not have to tell our story, but our story is beautiful anyway. But we would rather not have the certification and serve the people we want to serve at the lower prices, at least direct to customer. That's where we're kind of figuring out if we're going to do wholesale, we don't want to we don't want to pay ourselves too little when it comes to wholesale. So we still have to figure that out. But currently, we're not interested in raising our prices for the certification. And with that, I pass.
Great, thank you all. We will move on to a question specifically for Martice, and this is actually a question that was submitted by one of our participants. Can you speak more to some of the challenges that you faced with land access and land security, and how this impacts your decision-making around organic certification?
Yeah. It's going to be hard not to to get on the high horse there, but land access is really tough. I live in the city, and land is at a premium. So I don't even own the land that I'm renting on, that I'm on now. I'm renting land, and that's on an incubator farm, which are also very rare, at least in our area. And while I am very happy that we have the land, there's definite drawbacks to the land. For one, I can't have livestock there, and also the nature preserve itself doesn't want me to put up tunnels and things like that, so I can't do season extension. Um, so land is probably the biggest barrier for most beginning and new farmers. And it's not getting better. We're fighting against developers, and most of us don't have the kind of money to be able to really compete with those developers. And on top of that, we don't have land security now. We know the drain tile is going to be destroyed near where we're farming, and at least some of the fields will be flooded. And we don't know how bad. And we kind of just have to take it. So land security is heavy on my mind, not just society or culturally, but for us as full circle healing right now. And we don't have a solution for that other than to say, okay, we need to make up $3 million. And even when we do that, we have to get outside of the city to do what we really want. Um, but I intend to bring the city out to the more rural areas anyway. I want more of us to be out in those areas and experience what that's like. And again, I want to do livestock, and I can't do that in the city anyway.
Thank you so much for sharing. We will hop over to Brad. Our question for you is, looking back at your, I think, very recent transition, did you have any reservations going in or any obstacles along the way? And if so, how did you move through them?
Yeah, we definitely I think a lot of it was not was sort of conjectures of what I thought the certification process was. So one of the big things was that we really believe in like as much biodiversity on the farm as interplanting um, in inside rows. So like we'll have a bed that will be, turnips, green onions, and lettuce all in the same 30-inch wide bed. And it's sort of, I thought that that was just going to be a nightmare with trying to certify it. And it's not easy, but it was not nearly the nightmare as what I thought it would be. If you look at some of the templates that are provided there, it'll say something like, give your 3-year history of this plot and this field. And I started it out with each bed being a field and listing out everything that happened for 3 years across. And to be clear, we actually only have a half acre of vegetables. So we do like a no-till half acre vegetables. The rest is either we have it in like a conservation area or it's for animal livestock grazing. But yeah, so it's a pretty small operation. So that was the other thing. It just was like, is this really set up for us or not? So I can talk more about that, but essentially, I don't even know if Kat actually told us this, but I don't think she remembers that. But as a point, you can ask other organic growers these questions, and she told me the beauty of mixed veg. And so that's what I started to put on. And then, you still have to account for crop rotation. So we have like a lot of other documentation. We make clear like this sort of statement that says we won't do the same family for more than like 2 years in a row. We won't do the same vegetable family. So if anything, that still is a bit of an obstacle for us. Like in the past, I was a little fast and loose with that. I haven't noticed a huge difference if like, oh, I really want to throw some green onions in here next year as well. And so now I'm having to like sort of change up our operation that way. But that was not the obstacle it turned out to be. The other thing is we had started a bunch of perennials. That was sort of the initial part of our farm was I thought we would be mostly perennials. And we, just did not take care of the organic, like getting organic seed stock. And that, it turns out I was also not worried about for the wrong reason because after it's a year, I was told after a year, so it sort of doesn't matter. So you can get non-organic. If you get a non-organic 1-year seedling, you're probably like apple seedling, you're not going to get fruit from that for several years anyways. So, and then the last one was just wood chips. We used a ton of wood chips, and I was actually sort of got scared because like the first initial review was, oh, you have to have these. I kind of misread it, and I thought like, oh, we have to have like certified wood chips to apply, which would have been a nightmare. I don't know if those exist, but it actually was super easy, and the place that we get our chips from were thankfully like also CSA members, so they like were all about working with us to fill out this form that basically says we weren't using synthetic like dyes and that they're natural wood chips. So Yeah, luckily the biggest worries I had were mostly due to my ignorance than being real obstacles.
Great, thank you so much. I know there are a lot of different moving parts, so it's good to hear your experience with them for sure. And then our question for Kat. What would you say is the biggest impact that organic certification has had on your operation from a marketing or financial perspective over time?
So this is an interesting question because I shouldn't say this because there are markets we cannot access without our certification, but by and large, most of our I don't think our CSA would overall be really impacted if I wasn't certified. I think there's probably two stores that are quite important to us that where we would sell less or no produce. But for a lot of our sales, like we sell a lot to schools. We also do like a direct to food pantry CSA that is funded within our county, that we've helped set up over the last few years. Like those are things where our certification doesn't actually matter at all, I don't think. In a term like in terms of those relationships, the relationships are what puts the food there. There are some ways that organic, I think we're members of the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative. We sell some produce through them. I think in that case, we're able to get an actual organic premium. But based on where we are in the state, like when I look at southern Wisconsin prices, we're in one of the areas that's most affordable in the United States to buy groceries, north central Wisconsin. People's expectations for food, as well as the income of our own communities that we're selling into, is just not high. And so, because of that, we're not really commanding an organic premium for a lot of products. Our in Madison, I feel like the Madison carrot price is almost like 3 times what the carrot price would be here, for instance, for non-wholesale. And so we just kind of live in an alternate universe in that way. That said, I do think organic has been incredibly important for telling our story and then as like a bridge to allowing people to understand our production practices. So we always say we're organic, but then, we are no spray farm, so we don't spray. Lots of organic farms spray for different things, for different reasons. We do not. There's not explicit labor standards as part of organic production, but we have, and I'm happy to answer questions about this, but we've done the free add-on real organic certification where we're kind of held to these other standards that are kind of like what a lot of people feel like the USDA standards should be, maybe. So there are these other things that I think have been really important for our marketing. And even just talking to schools, like, they are really concerned with local and fresh and good, but organic helps. It helps, like it helps capture what we're doing. And so there's that like aspect for us that has been important. And I shouldn't underplay like those two stores that we sell to, that's like $55,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Those stores are very important, but most of our other markets, I'm not actually sure that the certification is key to because it's relationship based.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Our last facilitated panel question, and then we'll hop into the Q&A. Looks like we're getting a couple in the poll, which is great. But wanted to ask all three of you, what advice would you give to a farmer that's considering organic certification? Which is a bit broad, but Kat, if you want to go ahead and start, and then we can move back
Sure.
around.
I can start, and I do remember I was on Brad's like endorsement meeting, and I was like, "No, you're totally fine. You're ready to certify. You're good. You got it." And I think one of the biggest things is talking to other organic growers who are similar to you, or even like a slightly larger, slightly smaller scale, but like looking at similar, what items they're certifying or not, and talking through that. Because like livestock is very significantly different than fruits and vegetables, for instance. I think also just like don't be that intimidating because like so if you're like actually growing in the like I don't know, using organic practices, but you're doing it, you're like motivated by the idea of organic production. and the tenets around that, you're probably not violating the rules, honestly. And so I think that many people like worry that they're like they don't have enough organic seed, or like somebody's going to come to your farm. I remember I have organic certification, by the way. Tomorrow is my inspection. But like there's like an anxiety around that where you're like, oh, like, I'm gonna like fail this thing. And I just think for the most part, that's just not actually what it's like. Most certification agencies, if you're like really operating in the realm of organic, want to help you, certifiers as well as like all the support staff. So I think like just don't be that intimidated, talk to other people. And then, I mean, I'm happy to talk about this a little bit later, but like you benefit in other ways from like record keeping, like your business can really benefit in other ways from the process. So I think that that's the other thing to think about, is that there are these other things that it forces you to keep records on that if you weren't forced to do, you might not do, but ultimately end up benefiting you. So those are my main things.
I was nodding to Brad. I thought he wanted to go second. So what I'll go and I'll say it's not organic certification isn't what it was 10, 15 years ago. It doesn't seem to be as complicated. And even the smaller scale folks, there's a place for them. And there's a cost share to actually transitioning and getting that certification. But Kat kind of hit on it. What I will advise someone is to be comfortable with doing more record keeping. And if you're a little bit lax on that, you might want to learn that skill first, and then go for your certification. And if you want to do it, you can. You absolutely can. And with that, I pass.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo what they're both saying is you definitely can do it, and it's not as daunting as I thought it was when we started the process, and really echo the what Kat was saying about asking other organic growers. So like I found the Mosa, we're through Mosa, and I found everyone there, and then our inspector even, like, no one's out to like get you. They're not like really trying to find that thing. They probably are actually trying to make sure that they don't, like that's more the angle, is like they want you to succeed. And but yet there's still the idea that it's much, some of those awkward questions, if there's like something that you're doing that you're not quite sure, it's much better to ask those to just a different organic grower. And then I think Tay mentioned it before, I've not found, like, I went to like the organic vegetable production conference was like a great place to ask questions, but I've never asked an organic farmer a question that I've gotten like an unhelpful response, right? Like someone who's just like didn't want to like help the competition. That hasn't been the vibe ever. So I think don't be shy about that. And then with the like as an example though, the MOSA people and the inspector, they're not going to tell you things like you can put mixed veg. They might, but I got more response back. Oh, this isn't sufficient. We need more of a 3-year field history, and that's all you're gonna get, right? And like so you won't know what is on the table. You won't know what you can do to show that you're organic if you just rely on those official avenues. And then kind of always the advice when you're dealing with these things, like less is more. Like I tend to want to like talk and just share everything and just like, oh hi, yeah, oh you're on the farm, like let me show you around. Oh yeah. And then like, I was having to like check myself because I might be like, oh man, that fence is down right now and we've had these chickens running around. And then I was like, wait, don't share that. Like, what? They're gonna like run into the fields, like, and that just as an example, like you might get really excited about talking about things, but like again, they're not trying to. You're trying your best. Like, I mean, if you are trying your best and you're doing like organic practices, and they want to work out for you as well.
Great.
And I follow
Yeah.
that up with just a note, like a couple notes for anyone that's like in the process of certification, because I've learned a bunch of things. Also, the guy that's coming tomorrow is texting me back because I learned this thing during COVID, magic hot tip for everyone, which is that they do crop audits. They do like a sales history audit. They do these mass balance audits. They do these audits ahead of time. And I learned that I could ask inspectors ahead of time, could you tell me what crops you want to pull for auditing tomorrow, or let me know early in the morning of the day of inspection so I have everything ready for you. And I thought they were going to be like, you're trying to cheat. They are not. They are like, wow, that would be way easier here. And then they just shoot the crops. They're just like, how about these crops? Or choose from any of these four crops, whichever one works. Um, or choose, so this person just said, choose three crops other than maple syrup and do like the analysis for each one of them for a different area. So magic. And then also there's a lot of things like that you can utilize, like SOPs or standard operating procedures, where instead of like keeping insanely detailed records about things like weeding, on a small scale, we like hoe things constantly. Like, I don't want to write that down. Like, we have a log of what we do for the week for our employees in a Google Doc, but I don't want to write down every time I walk past and pull a weed. We can just be like, this is how we standardly take care of a bed in a hoop house. And if we don't follow these rules, like if we don't weed within 2 weeks of planting with a hoe and then hand weed, then we'll note it down. So if we do anything other than what we normally do, we'll keep that record. And that has like drastically changed my relationship with paperwork. Like, just think about like, and they're totally fine with that. As long as you're keeping good records of what you're doing or not doing, they don't want to like force you to write down everything, which is kind of what I did for a lot of the early years of my organic certification. So those are my other tips, which I wish someone had told me like 2 years in, because it would have saved me a lot of time.
That is incredibly helpful. And it's sounding like just more examples of how this functions in real life are very helpful for people to be able to look at what it actually looks like on farm to get certified. We are going to move into our live Q&A a bit early. And it sounds like, Beth, you are getting some questions. So I'm wondering if you would like to share them out.
Yeah, I can. I think if folks click on the Q&A, they might be able to see them. But I'm just gonna, right now we have three. Please feel free to add your questions if you have others. But I'm just gonna read them in order that they come through. And so the first one is for you, Martice. It says, do you have any idea on how organic agriculture could be made more accessible to low-income people? In other words, are there any changes you think could be made to organic regulations that would make organic food more available to customers?
That's a good question. We talk about regulation, so difficult. But here's where I plug the Market Match program. When you go to farmers markets, if you are in poverty and you do have SNAP or food share during the summer markets, when you go there, you can use your food share and they'll give you double what you want to spend, up to $60 every day, and that's all veg. And they've recently included meat, dairy, and eggs in that. So as far as what can make things more accessible, I think that's probably all the states going to be able to accomplish because you talk about regulation, now you talk about politics, and even if that's tough. But what we can do is ensure that Market Match is ready and available as soon as the markets go, and maybe trying to figure out a way for that Market Match to extend past the farming season for those farms that do extended seasons, like Kat said, hoop houses and tunnels. So, and I think she has a 3-season CSA, so she's also still growing outside of the summer market. So, if there was a way for us to continue that program direct from farm to consumer, that would be helpful as well. And that might be also doing some coordination because when you think about folks that are in poverty, they probably don't have the most reliable uh, transportation, and many of these farms are going to be outside of the bus or them being able to get in. So maybe having an intermediary being able to get the stuff and bringing those things into the city. But again, that's all complicated. But I would like to see something like that happen. I hope that answered the question. But that's all I have for right now. I'll keep thinking on it though. And with that, I pass. Oh, I'm gonna stop saying that because neither Brad or Kat is saying that, so I'm gonna stop saying that.
It's helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Martice. And I just want to give a quick plug too that Fair Share endorsed farms are able to participate in a program that we have that's called Partner Shares, where we subsidize CSA shares for lower income households, anywhere from 25 to 75% of the cost of the share up to $350. So becoming an endorsed farm allows you to be able to reach customers that wouldn't necessarily be able to access your products otherwise. And Fair Share does fundraising in order to be able to make up that difference. And so a lot of our endorsed farms are able to take advantage of that program. So it's a win-win program, really. And okay, so this question is for Kat and Brad. What are the major obstacles or difficulties you encounter working with your certifier? Are there any changes you would like to see on their end?
Well, I'll go first because I probably have a less of an answer because I don't have that much experience working with the certifier. I just want to say another kudos to Kat because I had no idea about that SOP idea, and that's just like game changer as well. But that sort of ties into this. It's like it would be great if the certifier, I don't know the how possible this is, but if they could guide you better in those sort of scenarios for like small farms that are not like 20 acres of corn, 20 acres of soy, like how there's a lot of those, there's not one way to grow a vegetable. And there's a lot of sort of questions that arise that you don't even know about. But if they could be like, hey, here's how this other farm does it, that would be kind of helpful, I think.
I will piggyback on that because one of the worst parts of the USDA certification system is that the inspectors are explicitly not allowed to do that, which is and if any of you, so at the beginning of my certification journey, so early, mid to late 2000s, there was a lot of certification agents who had gone from the state sanctioned or third-party systems before USDA and hadn't fully acculturated themselves to the new rules. And so they gave out a lot of information. I also learned that SOP rule from a real organic certifier, so the real organic program, you can all look this up. Ariel Pressman, who's still in the upper Midwest, he does great work with local veggie farmers, but he was working for them. He was a vegetable farmer, and he told me this idea, and I was like, what? No, how have I not had access to this? But part of it is that's one of the worst things. One of the best things about the organic community in this region is that everyone shares information. I'm sure Brad will email me later and I'll send him my SOPs. But that is wonderful. But one of the hard things about USDA, and part of it is to create impartiality and confidentiality and these other things that are valuable things, is that explicitly inspectors are not allowed to guide the practice because the way a third-party certification is you don't want a conflict of interest. There are all of those other things. I have a kitten yelling at me. And I would say my other part of things for organic certification that I find difficult, and I think everybody has gripes about their individual certifier, but my certifier that I work with, who I like for a lot of reasons, but they do not have an online system. So MOSA has a very nice system where you can upload documents, or it's a more interactive system. I have to email things in, and then file sizes are weird, and it's hard to get them updated versions of things. And that to me is quite annoying, given that the level of technology that most other systems use now. I'm like, you don't even have Dropbox. And so there's like things like that that I think every certifier has, like annoying, bureaucratic, or whatever way the organization works, things that are hard. And you're like paying people a lot of money and then you have to wait for them to certify you till like they want, kind of, which is also frustrating. Like you just are like, here's some thousands of dollars, and then you're just like, hmm. So, when people give me thousands of dollars, I like immediately give them food like the next week. So it's a different thing, I give them as much food as they've paid for or more. So it's like a different relationship. So especially if you're used to, your end of customer service, it can be a little bit daunting.
Okay, the next question we have is really for all panelists. Have your farms ever considered using labels that aren't federally regulated? For example, non-GMO, fair trade, and why or why not?
We haven't, because we have an inspector, because we do value added products, and our inspector doesn't understand what we do and most of our ingredients to start with. And I don't want to confuse him any further because his confusion is a headache for me. Uh, so we haven't pursued that specifically because of that inspector. And when he retires, as he said he was going to do 4 years ago, we might explore that more.
Yeah, we just haven't. I mean, there's not much else to that. I just haven't really looked into it. It's sort of like some of that stuff is kind of like we could name them gluten free too. It's kind of like they're not. It's not like I have not found the benefit, and then I feel like it might um, cause more confusion or problems. But I could see how it could benefit, like some of that stuff for a customer. And I'm definitely going to look into real organic more. I'd heard of it, and it's just sort of hasn't been the top priority, but it'd be cool to pursue that.
I have lots of feelings. I mean, non-GMO project in some ways is like this wonderful thing, but it's also like here's a bunch of stuff that's sprayed with a ton of pesticides. It's just not GMO. And so I feel like if the only thing you care about is GMOs, maybe that is meaningful, but most people read it as organic, honestly. I think it gets read as something it's not. And so that is like one of the issues with that. Also, organic is by definition, right? Not GMO, right? So that there's like redundancy. I think that there are, Real Organic Project is this weird add-on, and there's weirdness about it because, like, theoretically, you have to be certified organic to be part of it, but there are people that are part of like the movement around it that aren't, like, that are still participating in events and webinars and knowledge exchange with it. But like the idea is that like we want a stronger USDA standard that everyone could get on board with. I think that, and it's like free, and you just fill out like a piece of paper or a Google survey, and they come and inspect you once every 3 years. So that's a very like mellow thing. And we've done it because of my values around the organic movement generally. But a lot of the other things like certified naturally grown would be another one that you might hear about. That is like peer reviewed. And so it doesn't have third party certification and, lots of conflict of interest. And often you're inspected by friends or farmer peers that might look at your operation in a certain way. So we haven't, a lot of those things I feel like have watered down organic or the meaning of other things. Fair trade also, like, it totally makes sense. But we just tell people like what we pay our employees, and we have workman's comp, and like I feel like for us we use transparency on that end. Real Organic does have rules around like if you have workers from other countries, you can't hold their passports. Sounds like real, very basic labor standards that seem like very, very basic. But there are people that are organic farmers that violate those things. So like, I don't know. That's, makes me generally uncomfortable. But I think that's mainly not in Wisconsin. I do have to say we're talking mostly Florida, California, um, for a lot of those standards. So
Yeah, I guess I do actually have some thoughts too, because I think the idea of some of those terms having a federally regulated like legal definition would actually really benefit. I think us in certain ways, it's not something that we're going to solve here, but I saw in Walmart in May, they had local fresh family farm watermelons in the Baraboo Walmart. And that's just, it's not, no. They weren't local. And I looked it up and it was, it said from family farm, and it was this family farm that owned like farms, like 50 farms across the country. But like the customer is not going to, unless they're, I hope that they're like realizing, oh wait, there's no way that there's like ripe watermelons in May in Baraboo, but you can't count on that. And so it is frustrating. A lot of those other labels, I think that's one of our selling points, especially as like a super small farm, is like, hey, we're hyper local, we're hyper fresh. Anyone can say fresh and local. Like I've talked to like some lawyer friends of mine, and it doesn't, they can say it all day long and there's no repercussions for that.
Great points, Brad. This final question that we have, and I think we still have plenty of time. If folks have other questions, you can plug some in. But this seems to be for everybody too. What are the best ways to meet with other organic farmers to share knowledge? Do you think extension organized programs are helpful? And I'm going to echo what Brad mentioned earlier, the Organic Vegetable Production Conference that FairShare and UW-Madison co-plan along with Iowa State. That is held at the end of January virtually, and the very first weekend in February in person in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's a great place to glean information from other growers who are interested in hearing from other growers. It's really a peer-to-peer type of learning environment where we have other growers who are presenting very specifically on their production systems. And so you can gain a lot of knowledge by attending that conference. And that, again, is end of January for the virtual portion and beginning of February for the in-person portion. And I'm sure we'll make sure that Ariana has that information and can share it out when when registration becomes available. But I'm going to put that out to the panelists also. Where are some great places you have found to connect with other organic growers?
I can't say I really have much to say on that one. So I get invited to a lot of places. So what I will say is that there's quite a few around. I definitely would say look around. You'll find somewhere somewhat local or regional to you. And everywhere I've gone, they've been really inviting. And if they invite me in the room, I'm sure they will invite you in the room too. And with that, I end.
I mean, the only thing I have to add is like, you can go to all those conferences, you can go to the different events. It really, when you're there, it comes down to like you being proactive, which is hard for me sometimes. Like especially like some of these like farmers, like I always joke with my wife that like we have these people that are like celebrities only to us and like a small group of people, but they're like, and you get like a little bit like, oh, I would never want to bother them, and you do have to just sort of be willing to take those chances, I think, or like, and I've also sent questions like emails to people and not gotten a response. And it's, I tell you, I've come out the other side and it's okay.
There's a few things. So one, if you do even become a FairShare affiliated farm, Beth can correct me or Sam if I'm wrong, then you can be part of the listserv, which is like the listserv, right? So if you are like an organic or organic leaning vegetable farmer, I do feel like that listserv is like aside from a couple people that sometimes weirdly post things, and then I feel like they learn that that's not what that listserv is for. People post like very specific questions, like how do you build a germination chamber? And then like 8 people comment with different designs, or like I'm considering a flail mower, any ideas? And people like give you very specific feedback like to the group, and then you'll get private messages. So that for like burning questions, or like, just machinery stuff where you might not know, has always been for me like a very meaningful place, because we are like geographically removed from like the center of the vegetable growing fair share folks. There's the Marble Seed, like I called it by its right name, Marble Seed Conference, which is like a big awe-inspiring thing. As an extrovert who never gets migraines, I do get really overwhelmed by that conference and get a headache every year I go. So I feel like it is very socially intense. But there's a lot to learn. And so, spending some time in specific roundtables or specific presentations, I think that's good. And then I would echo probably what Brad and Martice said, which is just like show up at those events, make, whether they're small field days locally or conferences, and like be open to talking to people or just sending people emails. Like I almost always respond to emails. And if I don't have time, I respond like when people ask me like a lot of questions in life. I will like be like, oh, I don't have time to answer you, but I will get back to you with more details on overwintering onions in a couple weeks, like, so I feel like if you see people, I mean, that's a whole nother weird thing, but if you see farmers doing interesting things on social media, like there's this farm called Sassafras Creek in the Southeast, and he always posts these great machinery videos. I just was like, how much did that carrot harvester cost and where did you buy it? People will just tell you, right? And so that I think is just like viewing it as a community. And then like there's some people that aren't into it. You'll like learn who those people are, but there's a lot of people. I think I posted a carrot harvester question somewhere, and um, yeah, I got a message back from TP Produce like 45 minutes later at 5 a.m. with like 16 options. So like, there's a lot of farmers, like the farmer superstars of like, yes, my early adulthood, have just want to give you their information. So there's that.
I do want to
That's
say
all.
it's okay to be a wallflower in these kinds of places. I'm an introvert who's forced to be extroverted often, and I'm very tired when we do that. And uh, even if even if you go someplace and you have specific questions you want to ask and you don't ask, still start sharpen still. So just being in the room with these other individuals, your question may not ultimately be asked and answered. You being in the room with them will absolutely give you something. Um, so, even if you're a little bit shy, going to these places are worth it still. And you will likely find someone else there that's shy. You guys will be shy together and not even really talk, but you'll be comfortable. And with that, I'm not saying it again.
These are all great points. Also, very good to know that I'm not the only person that gets headaches at these events. But another plug I wanted to put in is that we have 3 new regional vegetable educators in Extension as well. And they're building out their programming and going to have events that are going to be opportunities for folks to get together as well. So I wanted to give them a shout out here. I think several of them are on the call. But that is Sarah Janes Ugaretz, Emily Galke, and Ann Cohenstra.
And I'll
It
say
look
too, as someone who helps to organize events and that kind of thing, I am always so excited to hear from growers about what specific event they want to see. Because if I know it's going to meet a grower need, I am so excited to do that instead of guessing, is this really what folks want? Blah, blah, blah. So don't be shy about calling up your extension agent or anyone at an entity that coordinates these kinds of programs and say, hey, I'd really be interested in a field day about XYZ, or a workshop about record keeping, or whatever it looks like. I think that is something that is almost always welcome by folks who coordinate programs for growers.
Totally agree. I'm going to second that here for our programming as well. Looks like we are all out of Q&A questions. I want to give a huge thank you to our panelists and our co-hosts for taking what is probably roughly dinner time to talk with us all today. And also a shout out for the Midwest Top program and Fair Share as well. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our participants for joining us. We will be sending out virtually everything from this presentation to all of you. And the online recording may not be available for a bit yet, but that will be sent out as well when it is made available. So thank you all so much again, and hope you all have a good night. Thank you.